The Physician's Road. Create your life in medicine. On your own terms. Today, we are on the path to wealth.
The Physician's Road is brought to you by Vernonville Asset Management. Vernonville Asset Management was created to help physicians build wealth and create income beyond Wall Street. Through our exclusive private investments, doctors can begin to free themselves from the burdensome regulations in healthcare by creating income streams independent of medicine. Go to incomebeyondwallstreet.com to get your free report, Wall Street's Biggest Lie. Again, go to incomebeyondwallstreet.com to get Wall Street's Biggest Lie and free yourself today.
Welcome, everyone, to the Physician's Road podcast. I'm Dr. Eric Tate. Today, we're on the path to wealth, and I'm so happy to have friends and colleagues, Drs. Kenton Allen and Oocyte Marshall, here with us. They're going to talk about the company that they have formed called Doc2Doc Lending and how their mission to help physicians as they transition through from medical school to residency to fellowship into the early stage of their practices, birthed their ability and want to help the next generation of physicians as they move through that process. And just as full disclosure, on the investment side of our world, we are partnered with them, but we're not going to be talking really about investments today. We're really going to talk about how two physicians came together to pursue their entrepreneurial passions to help physicians figure out a problem that many of us had as we were transitioning through our careers. And so we're going to start with Dr. Oocyte Marshall, and he's going to give us a little bit about his background and how he and Kenton came together to form Doc2Doc Lending and what Doc2Doc Lending is. So Oocyte, please tell the audience kind of how you got started and kind of where you all are now.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be with you and your listening audience. I understand that it's the full gamut of medical students, practicing and established physicians as well. And so thank you for hosting us and for the work that you do, reaching out to the cohort of doctors that need to consume this information in general, and all the other good topics that you have on the Physician's Road platform. I'm Oocyte Marshall. I am an immigrant immigrant child of a single parent home. So I'm from Guyana in South America and moved here with my mom and sister when I was 16 and did my high school in New Jersey and then college and medical school and residency, internship of residency at Emory in Atlanta. So I consider myself a Georgia boy or an Atlanta native, but like most Atlantans, we're all transplants. It's a transplant city. I then left Atlanta and Emory to go to Harvard, to Brigham and Women's to do my anesthesiology residency. That's where I met Kenton. He was even in residency a very focused and diligent professional, and I was drawn to his personality and his way of handling his business and it led to us forming a company together. I did my pain fellowship at Harvard as well, and then I'm back in Atlanta now where I practice at an interventional pain practice here in the Southeast. I'll tell you that my experience as an upcoming physician with the aspirations to practice medicine coming from the third world, I think I have a fairly typical immigrant experience in the sense that it's hard sometimes to find the coins to pay for the plethora of expenses that we have to incur to become a doctor. It's a tough sojourn, and it's a very costly one. Forget about the opportunity cost of the what you could be earning had you gone and get a job right out of college. But there are the plethora of expenses. There are the board exams. There's the relocation expenses. There are the unexpected family emergencies. And it felt like during my time in training, I can check many of those boxes. You know, I had a lot of student loan debt. We couldn't afford to pay for my relocation costs out of my family savings. And so I had to lever capital with some regularity over the course of the 12 years that I was training. And I think at Doc2Doc, we figured out a way to make that more efficient, more thoughtful, and more fair to physicians because we understand exactly what that journey looks like. We've lived it, and we want to ensure that first and foremost, we provide a service that we can be proud of within our collective physician community.
Perfect. Great. And I think that's a great backstory. I mean, many physicians in the United States are from immigrant backgrounds, and they understand that from that perspective. And so, Ketan, kind of give us your backstory and kind of how you came to this, and kind of how this fits into your vision for the future for yourself and your family.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, Eric. I'd echo Swade's thanks for letting us be part of your platform here on the Physician Road, and for everything you're doing for the physician and wider professional community through podcasts such as these. My background is I was born and raised in New England. I'm from New Hampshire. I was born in Boston, grew up in New Hampshire. Went to college at a small liberal arts college in Worcester, Massachusetts called Holy Cross. And from there went to Dartmouth, where I did a dual MD and MBA degree, similar to what Zwade did at Emory. And then went to Brigham and Women's, where I met Zwade, and that's where I was training also as an anesthesiologist. Zwade is very humble. He was our chief resident in our class year, and those were very kind words he shared for me. But certainly, coming from a big residency class, we had 28 residents in our year of anesthesia training. And among those 28 really impressive people across the board, Zwade was one of 3 to be chosen as our chief resident. He's always been kind of a natural leader and mentor, and certainly is part of the reason and the qualities that I was really excited to partner with him in Doc2Doc. After training at Brigham and Women's, I went back to Dartmouth. I subspecialized in anesthesia and acute pain and regional anesthesia, and have since set up my practice within the Mass General hospital system. So I work at one of Mass General's community hospitals, also in southern New Hampshire, and work as a fractional FTE, so that the balance of my time I dedicate to Doc2Doc, and have for the last 4 years. I'm pretty involved with the New Hampshire Medical Society. I'll be the incoming president this year, starting in November. Now, my kind of shared experience to Zwade's, which led to us founding Doc2Doc 4 years ago, was really around my personal challenge of wanting to build a family during the time that I was training, while also being successful in pushing things forward on a professional standpoint. So when I moved from Dartmouth to Boston, we had one daughter, 2-year-old daughter, and my wife was pregnant. She was a nurse and had supported us through medical and business school, and wanted to have some of her own professional aspirations moved forward while I was training, and was able to support the family a bit myself financially. And so when we did the math, we couldn't do it personally and professionally to kind of bring ourselves from point A to point B during those years. And when I went to see alternatives for how I could supplement my salary as a resident, was surprised that I was viewed as high risk. And similar to Zwade, I had about $225,000 worth of debt. My salary at the time was just about $54,000 a year. And again, we had 2 daughters, and so because of that, I was viewed as high risk. The interest rates offered to me to supplement my income were well into the high teens, low 20%, and it didn't feel right. I felt as though I was on should be considered a good trajectory professionally, and so as Waddy and I found that experience was shared among many of our peers, we founded Doc2Doc Lending, and look at risk, particularly for early career physicians within the personal loan space, to offer them access to capital at rates that we consider fair and more appropriate.
Got it. That's absolutely perfect. And Ketan, we actually never realized this. So my father is Holy Cross class of 61, as well as my uncle.
Really? I didn't realize that. I have some. I have a couple uncles who went there as well, so I'll have to play the name game later.
I say when you said small liberal arts in Worcester, I was like, oh, those are the Jesuits. There you go. I was like, I knew exactly where you were going with that. So connections abound, as we like to say. So that's great that you all gave a great kind of personal overview of kind of why you founded Doc2Doc. This was a in many ways a labor of love, because you understood exactly what is needed in the marketplace, because you all needed it in the marketplace. I needed a residency relocation loan as well when I was coming out of medical school and moving into residency. And so let's pivot that way so that the audience can understand exactly kind of who the ideal borrower is in terms of what does that profile look like who right now is kind of your borrower pool. And you can talk about it in the context of COVID as well, because I know some of it has changed during COVID. But please, whomever would like to take that to explain to the audience who should be applying to Doc2Doc Lending, what does that look like? And even you can walk through the process a little bit as well for people so they can understand that you all are different than a traditional bank in terms of that process.
Sure, I'll go ahead. We look at our borrower base as being any physician, anyone who has the need to access personal loans. But then we can subcategorize it within our platform into three categories. They're the fourth-year medical students, the ones who just matched into residency and are looking to relocate between match day and June 30th or July 1 when they start their clinical rotations for their first year of internship. They're the in-training physicians. Those are residents and fellows who are already within their training program, but have unexpected expenses occur. And then they're the established doctors, the ones who are either early career or established in their careers and need to access capital. Now, the most common reason for medical students to borrow would be for their transition costs. I'll tell you, we had a very heartwarming story of one of our earliest borrowers who came out of a prestigious Ivy League school in New York and was moving to California for her residency. She was a first-generation physician, had borrowed the funds for the initial relocation from her mom, who had taken it out of her retirement plan to cover those expenses and need to repay her mother. Over the course of the intake process, which is a 3 to 4.5 minute application with no hard credit inquiries, only a soft pull is performed. We found out as our physician team interviewed her and spoke with her in earnest about the need for capital in her case. We also realized that she was taking her board exams a few weeks after she relocated to California, and she was extraordinarily stressed about it. Suffice it to say that we funded her loan, and shortly after we funded that loan, we sent her a care package thanking her for joining the family of Doc2Doc, but also with some board prep materials. Now, it's when she called us back to thank us for the gift, you can hear the tears in her voice. And it's the kind of a story, and there's several other examples like this one, where in the Doc2Doc team, this is the best part of what we do. We spend a lot of time speaking to bankers, speaking to investors, speaking to lawyers about platform diligence. But at the core of our mission and our business is that interaction as a doctor to a doctor at a time when they're under duress, when they're stressed financially, when they're stressed academically and professionally. They're drinking off of a fire hydrant, as a first-year intern. And it's hard to keep your head above water and balance all of the kind of competing interests on your life and time at that time. And it's heartwarming for us to be able to make a difference and say, hey, we've been there. We know what it's like. We've survived it. And let's find a way to help you as well. The short answer is, Eric, that if any physician or dentist has a need to borrow for a personal reason, these are not commercial loans. The loan amounts go between $5,000 and $50,000 in today's program. That may change in the future, but it's 5 to 50 for any personal reason. I'll pause there and give Kenton a chance to reply as well.
Yeah, that's I couldn't articulate it better than that. I think the the key points with the clientele base we have that have to be in your last year of school, be it medical school or dental school, and then you can borrow throughout your career. And the reasons, again, personal loans, meaning that we don't do student loan refinancing, and we don't do mortgage lending. But outside of that, the reasons for the loan can be almost anything, and we offer, again, loans between $5,000 and $50,000, and really have a personalized service where any applicant speaks to a physician member of the Doc2Doc team, and as such, it's not just a lending conversation. It's it's a collegial conversation for what can be the best path based on what you're trying to achieve. Most often, it's trying to get from point A to point B, either personally or professionally, whatever that point A or point B might be. It may be literally a geographic point A to point B, or it may be personal, starting a family like myself, unexpected costs like medical costs, or it may be professionally, buying into a private practice as you're leaving training, getting a new service line with your existing practice. We've had loans kind of as you start a marriage. We've had loans for trying to fund the bridge during a divorce. Really the spectrum of personal and professional causes and reasons. And again, it's a supportive collegial experience for those who want that available to them.
As it relates to COVID, Eric, just to kind of run up your question, because Kent and I are both practicing physicians, we felt the clinical effects of COVID and the financial effect as well in our professional lives. I'm at an outpatient surgery center and saw my practice revenues decline by 78% during the peak in March, April, May of this year. And so many of our peers have been had a tough time, particularly dentists and the folks that do a lot of elective procedures. What we've seen is that demand has increased over the course of the past several months. And what we're noticing as well is that we as physicians, I think it's responsible to separate personal financing from practice and business financing. And so you get a practice financing loan, and there are many large companies that do those financing deals. But because financial covenants have changed and gotten so tight due to the COVID pandemic, that a lot of doctors now are using some personal capital to secure those commercial lines. And our loans are very appropriate for that. So if you needed to have $50,000 of your own money to put up to become eligible for a practice loan or an AR loan, we can step in place there. I think several of our residents that are med students that match into residency and were required to move into their residency program early because of the pandemic. And so hospitals were saying, we want to get you started in June instead of July or in May. Those transition expenses we were able to help earlier than we anticipated before. So the timeliness of our product within the current economic and clinical environment, I think has been great for many of our Doc2Doc family members.
That's perfect. And you said a term AR. What does that mean?
Accounts receivable. So for the younger doctors who are not yet in practice, one of the metrics that you'll find you'll be trending closely when you're in practice is the fact that most payers will pay you 60 to 90 days after the service is performed. So you have this outstanding revenue to collect at some time in the future, and so waiting on that capital can put a cash freeze on your today financing, because you'll have expenses today, but the money's coming in 2 to 3 months. And so knowing what that number is and having ways to borrow against that future income is a tool at times to keep your practice going during hardship.
Perfect. And then just to reiterate kind of from what you guys said, so that the listeners can understand exactly kind of how the company is structured. And I'm just going to pull this straight from kind of your website. And you talk about the school years in terms of relocation following graduation, kind of initial housing outlays, first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposits, potentially even a down payment on a home, if it makes sense to buy a home rather than rent where you're going to be, engagement and wedding expenses, and then car purchase and or repair car costs. And that's kind of what you all consider the school years, right? So fourth year coming out. Then you talk about the training years. So this is kind of residency, fellowship. We talk about childcare expenses, moving expenses, refinancing credit card debt. That's a big one. Many of us have to rack up credit card debt at very high interest rates while we're training and in medical school. And so you all will do that. So no mortgage loans, no refinance of student loans, but you will do refinancing of credit cards. And then the one that I found very interesting and one that I think we should highlight, especially for our female colleagues, is money for oocyte cryopreservation. We know that it's a long training process for us, and in many ways doubly so for our female colleagues. And many of them may want to look to potentially freeze their eggs earlier in their career than later. And then lastly, you talked about kind of the working years. So out into practice, the practicing years, so unexpected emergency expenses, home improvements, credit card consolidation, kind of same thing there, and then just career development. So potentially getting into other practices and things of that nature. Would there be any other, did I miss anything? Is there anything else that you would want to add to that I may have missed before we move on to the next question?
No, I think the our mantra is it's any personal reason. We only ask why for our internal data keeping so we can better know how to tailor our products, but there's no restriction. It's any personal reason.
Got it. And so you talked about that that resident who was moving from New York to California. Can you give a couple more examples of how you made a huge difference in your client's life, our fellow physician colleagues?
Sure, I can offer an anecdote here. This is, and I'd start by saying that this is also my kind of favorite part of Doc2Doc is kind of speaking with people and helping to offer a solution for whatever the challenge or the situation may be. Not too long ago, we had a couple come to us who had been in practice for 3 or 4 years following their training. During that time, had saved up a nest egg to go back and subspecialize within their field, and they wanted to subspecialize, but at the same time wanted to start the family. And because of the reduction in their salary during that 1 year period during the subspecialty training, really was very diligent about that those years in practice to save enough to support them during that time. Now, 2 months before they started that subspecialty training, they had a child, and their child had a condition that required treatment at one of only 2 centers in the United States that specialize in this kind of unique medical condition, and providing that treatment for their child. They ran through their nest egg within the order of months, and didn't have other options during that time to support themselves and continue the training. So the situation was either kind of drop out or find an alternative source to support things. And so we were able to kind of again extend them credit to keep things on track, where they could continue to care for their family. They could continue the professional training without having to delay that, and at an interest rate that wasn't punishing, because we didn't just look at the salary that was that they were earning during that year, and again, it was a lower salary during the training period. And so it's really valuable from our perspective. That's the mission of why we did that, to be able to help people through times like this, similar to the position that I was in during my training. We have many other stories like that. You had mentioned Oocyte cryopreservation. We've spoken with folks who similarly want to start a family but don't want to delay their training, and so have needed to hire surrogates to carry children, which can run in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, and and we've helped by telling people that they probably shouldn't take a loan at this time, that this isn't the best option for you. So there's been lots of people who we've counseled against a loan and either turn them to an alternative path, or one that is kind of better for their personal financial health going forward. So there's lots of kind of wonderful people we've met through this. We've been able to help, but we've also been able to help people by steering them away from debt at a particular time.
So it sounds like when people are coming into the Doc2Doc kind of sphere and family, it's not just merely a transactional process. You all have the experience of being physicians, going through the process, and now being out, and you can kind of give guidance and mentorship back to the people who are applying to help them on their own journey. Would you say that would be a fair assessment?
Yes, absolutely. One of the benefits of having built this company over the last 4 years is that we've also built a community, and it's a growing and engaged community of physicians and dentists, and along the way have offered mentorship to some people, and other people have offered to be mentors on the other end, and we kind of, as the Doc2Doc team, have helped make those connections across the people who are interested in them. One time that has been particularly stressful and challenging that you can sympathize with is the transition from medical school to residency. It just happened this July, and we make residency relocation loans around that period to a fair number of graduating medical students. And for a lot of them, those first couple of months are really challenging, and we've been able to offer more than just that loan. Be it introductions to people within that specialty who have overcome that specific hurdle in that field, and kind of offering words of encouragement to help get through it. It has been. It's become a community even more so than more than just a lending platform.
Great. And so Zwade, I'm going to throw to you a question about, you alluded to kind of the ease of application process. Can you talk a little bit about, can you walk somebody through what that looks like? So they've done the application, and then what is kind of the timing and time frame and communication situation for someone who is applying?
Sure. You can go to Doc2DocLending.com. That's our landing page. And on that page, you'll see the Apply Now button. After you've reviewed the initial materials and you feel comfortable that our program fits your need, you submit the application, which takes the average borrower about 3 to 4.5 minutes to complete. We made it with the busy physician in mind, where we're not asking for a whole lot of information up front. And then within about 12 hours, we can get you a conditional approval, depending upon the inputs that were placed. You'll hear from a physician member of our team in about 24 to 48 hours, and we can walk you through what the actual approval means, or if there was any issue or challenge with the application, why it's challenged, and ways to either cure the challenge or other programs that may be more appropriate for you. We'll ask that any borrower that submits then sends us some verifying documentation, proof of being in medicine, and pay stubs, etc. But again, we're using a lot of back-end API plugins or tech-enabled features to do some of the verification process electronically, as opposed to having you try to find your medical diploma within your stack of documents in your library. And then within about 3 days after the closure of our documentation, we can get the funds dispersed to our borrowers. So the system is enabled to get things moving quickly and efficiently. And I think the bottleneck usually is the borrower's ability to get the documents to us in a timely manner, knowing the doctors are quite busy. We do work at nights and weekends as well, because we know that our borrowers are oftentimes have very challenging schedules. And so you can get a hold of someone on our team, and we make calls on Saturdays and Sundays and in the evenings as well, just to fit the schedule of our borrower base.
Perfect. And so kind of to wrap up, what is the future of Doc2Doc? Where are you all taking this as you all move forward?
Yeah. So again, we're thrilled to be in this platform and speaking to a broader audience. And this is kind of the next step for us. Over the course of the last year, Kenton said the company was founded 4 years ago. That's the idea, the actual genesis company. But there were 3 years of legal diligence, several hundreds of thousands of dollars in spend to get this to where it is, that we spent ourselves and bootstrapped the company. We issued our first loan about 13 months ago, 14 months ago now. And so it's been just over a year of us issuing loans, and it's been quite successful using a word of mouth approach. Our borrowers are some of our biggest advocates. They tell their peers and their friends. We have a number of financial aid advisors in some of the top tiered schools that refer their graduates to us almost exclusively. And we're at the point now where we have line of sight, thanks to your platform, Eric, with the investment funds that you mentioned briefly at the beginning of this podcast. We have line of sight to significant more funding, and we can issue a lot more loans and be a lot more impactful within our communities. And so now we're being intentional about marketing and getting our name and brand awareness out there beyond just a word of mouth phase. And so we're looking to deploy several million dollars in loans over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. And so we're open for business. Many bankers, many banks are constrained because of COVID. We know that our fund has performed impeccably even through COVID. By that, I mean we have no delinquencies and defaults. And so we know that physicians, we respect our financial obligations, though we may not be the most financially savvy at all times. We do have an obligation to repay debts. I think what the sophisticated world may not be aware of is that doctors get credit checks at times for credentialing. And so we cannot afford to have a ding on our credit report once we're out in practice and working. And so we honor our obligations. And so with that, we're a lot more liberal in terms of getting access to capital now when a lot of the banks are not because of COVID-based covenants. And so the next phase for us is scaling. We're also creating an ecosystem, as Kenton alluded to curate information that's financially relevant to physicians. So we have, we're building out a platform, an app called the DocCentral app. That's going to be a community that talks about things like med mal insurance, disability insurance products. If people are interested in IULs their whole life, there's a conversation around that. I know it's controversial for many, but we want to have the information out there to educate the folks that are curious about these things on what that looks like, how to manage that mysterious AR during COVID. How do you leverage that kind of asset if you have a practice as well? And of course, we have a plethora of other financial resources to plug borrowers and doctors into if they need a product that we don't offer. So if you're thinking about for a loan from us, and you go to our website and you say, you know what, I don't have a need for a personal loan, you can click request information and we'll get on the phone with you anyway and talk you through what's out there. We've had folks inquire about PPP loans and disaster recovery loans several months ago. So we're able to plug you in there. Folks that ask about student loan forgiveness programs, we have resources to plug you into for that as well. So think of us as a one-stop shop. You may need money or you may need information. And where our reputation is our bond, and we're out here to be helpful and not predatory. And so you can rest assured that we'll curate best information for you if you have any interest in getting anything about money, finances, or needing to borrow a loan.
Great. And Kenton, how would you like to wrap us up?
Yeah, well, that was a good overview of our future, Eric. I view this as really a launching point for us. As Wade said, over the past 14 months, we've proven to the world that our concept and our theory that doctors are different and therefore in this industry should be looked at differently. And by looking at them differently, we're able to offer lower interest rates because we believe that it's a less risky population as borrowers. We've been able to show that over 14 months of data, and this is our launching point to really be able to assist and help facilitate doctors more widely throughout the country. We operate in all 50 states, and now it's a matter of just getting our name out there and what we do. And as Wade said, making ourselves available to any conversation, which we always are. And the easiest way to reach us is right through our website. And as Wade said, we turn around those conversations really quickly. So certainly for all your listeners here, Eric, thanks for listening. Thanks for the interest, and we'd really welcome any further conversations if anything you heard today piques your interest or you'd like to dive into in more detail.
Perfect. And so I want to thank Kenton Allen and Zwade Marshall for being with us today on the Physicians Road podcast. To get a transcript of this episode and to learn kind of more about the Doc2Doc, you can go to thephysiciansroad.com/Doc2Doc, and that's just DOC, the number 2, DOC. So thephysiciansroad.com/Doc2Doc. And please, if you want to have deeper conversations like this, you can go to the Physicians Road Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, type in the Physicians Road under groups, answer the questions, and we'll let you in, and we can have a much more in-depth conversation about this and other topics. And so again, I want to thank Kenton Allen and Dr. Kenton Allen and Dr. Zwade Marshall for being with us. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Eric, and if any of your viewers want to get to us directly, it's Zwade at Doc2Doc Lending and Kenton at Doc2Doc Lending as well. We'll make ourselves available to the audience for any questions or comments or just ideas about what we're doing.
Perfect. We'll put that absolutely in the show notes. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
The Physicians Road is brought to you by Vernonville Asset Management. Vernonville Asset Management was created to help physicians build wealth and create income beyond Wall Street. Through our exclusive private investments, doctors can begin to free themselves from the burdensome regulations in healthcare by creating income streams independent of medicine. Go to incomebeyondwallstreet.com to get your free report, Wall Street's Biggest Lie. Again, go to incomebeyondwallstreet.com to get Wall Street's Biggest Lie and free yourself today.
Thank you for listening to The Physicians Road, where you create your life in medicine on your own terms. Please go to thephysiciansroad.com and sign up for your free guides and resources.